everybody, and welcome to this podcast. I am Bliss,
And I'm Shelby.
and we are just gonna kind of start a podcast about really anything. Our friendship is what's bringing us to have this podcast.
We met at Cato, which was my first job. I don't even know what job.
I don't even know what job, unfortunately.
Yeah, you came in about a year and a half into me already working there.
Mm-hmm.
And I saw you as a threat.
Oh!
But that's just because you were coming in as a newbie and you were taking a position above me.
Oh,
And so I was like, oh, let's see if she's going to be bossy. And then I saw your blonde hair. And it went...
Predetermined judgment,
Yeah,
I know.
exactly.
Now all these people are gonna think I'm blonde, too.
She's not blonde. No longer blonde.
Secret's out! She's blonde, though.
I am blonde. More platinum than anything, but...
I like it. It's different than it was.
Mm-hmm.
But I like that you let the roots grow out, too. That's the look right now.
Yeah. I did darker roots so that it
You don't have to dye it every 5 seconds.
And then
I know.
perfect timing for quarantine.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I was gonna say,
Yeah.
you picked the perfect hairstyle to have during this crap.
Yeah. So, yeah, we met there at Cato, and we actually kind of clicked right away after, like, our first day.
Mhm.
Like, it was fine our first day, but then we started talking more after that.
We started getting more into the introspective conversations that
Mhm.
we can't have with
Instead of doing our
everybody.
job.
Yeah. Ooh. It was not busy. Let's not pretend like we had that much to do, okay?
That's true.
I mean, we could have done more, I'm sure.
Yeah,
But
for sure.
you and I mean, compared to how we could have been when we were working together, at least we still did our job.
That's true.
Oh my god, you remember that one Saturday?
Jesus Christ, I forgot that we both went home, like, crying.
That was the worst day ever!
It was.
Was that not the day the lady yelled at me because I wouldn't give her extra $5 back on the return? Was that the same day?
No, that's a different day.
That was a different day?
I think it was like that was a whole different situation. I don't fully remember what happened on Saturday, but it seemed like every
Oh, the registers kept going down. We had to call in every credit card authorization over the phone.
That was so frustrating because the people who work on the other side of the phone for our company are the rudest human beings ever.
Yes.
And like they hear our voice and they just treat us like crap.
They're like, what store are you from?
Yeah.
Alright, well, it looks like your registers are down, so
Yeah.
thanks,
No,
genius!
Jim, this is the 5th time we've called, honestly. Like, just give us... Just process the transactions and we can go. Because you're going to hear from us again.
Quit taking credit card payments. Well, if that's the only way they're going to pay for their payment, do you want me to turn away all this business? I didn't think so, so
Yeah.
process the payment!
It was terrible. Yeah, I remember that. That was such a frustrating day. And it was just us two.
Yep.
Yeah. Good thing we're both managers.
Yeah, I know. I was the one that was technically in charge, too. And I was like, oh god, I'm not handling this well at all. I had to call Amanda and everything.
Yeah.
Oh, no.
Yeah, I remember that day. Oh, that was a day
That
from
always
hell.
happened to us, though, and it was almost like because when we worked together, we meshed so well that it was the universe was like, oh, because you guys get along so well at work together, then
Mhm.
all the hell days are gonna be when you guys work.
Yeah.
It's like, why?
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Yeah.
Okay,
That
we
was-
totally got back off track again. We
Yeah.
knew this was gonna happen.
Yeah, that's gonna happen a lot. Yeah.
Okay, so yes, we met at Cato. We instantly clicked. We started talking, I think, mostly about psychology and like the way the universe works and
Because we're both
conspiracy
technically
theories.
psych majors. Like, you're not in school anymore, but that's what you're going to go for.
Mhm.
So technically, we're both psych majors.
Mhm.
So we would have a lot of deep intellectual conversations at work, especially at night, because once like 7 o'clock, 7:15 hit, no one was coming to the store. So we would just sit there and like go into existential crises.
Basically,
all
yeah.
the time.
But it was good therapy sessions for us
It
both.
was.
I mean, because you're the only friend that I've ever had that understands things on the scale that I experience them.
Mm-hmm.
That's the only really way I know how to talk about it. Because it's not that I don't have other friends that don't understand mental health or don't struggle with things like anxiety, because I have another friend who struggles with anxiety, and she's called me before in the middle of the night being anxious about stuff, but it's like, you understand it on a different level, though. It's not just the anxiety, it's the everything else, like the secondhand self and the happiness and the expectations and everything,
Yeah.
you know? Which,
It's like the more detailed ideas and like the actual psychology of it all. It's not just like the general terms of oh, I have really high anxiety, talk me down.
Mm-hmm.
It's more of like, okay, this is why we have it, and this is what we need to fix and work on so that it's better.
And this is what happened in our childhoods to cause these kind of behaviors, and then we need to rework these because this is causing...
it more.
Yeah. Yeah,
That's what
it is.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But that's how we bonded, and that's kind of basically what this podcast is going to be about.
Yeah.
It's just that kind of...
And then, like, a week ago, my video...
Yep.
I sent Bliss a video about... I'm still going through a tough time, and I kind of just got tired of being in this spot, and I was like, I gotta express it, but I didn't know how, because I've never been comfortable sitting in front of a camera. But I went ahead and did it, and it was like a 15-minute long video about where I am, how I'm feeling, and just different things like that. And the first person I sent it to was Bliss, because I knew she would understand, and that's what kind of started this whole thing.
Mm-hmm.
So,
yeah, because she sent it to me not knowing that I was secretly going through the exact same thing she was going through, and I was so moved by the video she sent me that I started crying, and then it sparked a conversation between us about what we were going through. And because we both understood each other, we then realized also that other people are probably going through the same crap, a lot more people than we assume. And that's when Shelby was like, hey, we should do a podcast.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, honestly, I'm totally down, because you and I can talk for hours anyway.
Yeah.
So, I mean, why not record it if it would be helpful for somebody else?
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, and part of the video is that the fact that I'm going through a whole new journey in life, and I'm starting a big change in my life. Because we'll go into more detail about it in other podcasts, but basically, I haven't been true to myself, and I'm suffering the repercussions of it now.
Mm-hmm.
So this podcast will probably be following me along with my journey, and you guys will hear updates about it. But yeah,
same here. We're going through a similar journey. Like, we're experiencing same feelings, but for different reasons. And then we're both trying to work on healing from that, and maybe these conversations will bring revelations and things that make it easier for us to heal, that might bring about revelations for other people, that
hopefully.
things that they maybe didn't think about it. Because, I mean, having an outside perspective sometimes really helps, because when you're thinking about your own stuff, all your own emotions are involved, and it's so hard to put those aside and think about it from the outside looking in, from a super logical perspective.
Right.
So basically what we have laid out is we have some ideas for the next few podcasts. Mental health is what we're going to start out with. This podcast is just our introduction, basically, tell you guys who we are, what this podcast is going to be about, and what to expect, but then the rest of them are going to lay out other topics.
Yeah, I mean, it's going to be... I don't know. Like, I feel that mental health is probably going to be our biggest thing.
Yeah.
It's going to be our main thing, but we also have very interesting conversations over, like, conspiracies and stuff like that. And so we might have, like, sub-podcasts where you can go and listen to us talk about these crazy, intense conspiracy theories or something like that. But,
like living a simulation, which if you have not even considered that, I'm telling you right now, you better look it up this instant, I swear to God, because it will blow your mind. But anyway, don't look it up before bed, because then you'll be thinking and you will not be able to go to sleep, but...
Oh, jeez. Oh, we didn't even tell what this podcast stands for.
Oh, we didn't, did we?
No.
So?
It's kind of confusing, because our podcast is literally called This, and it's actually an acronym. It's called The Healing Idealistic Show. So, do you want to kind of go into detail about exactly how we came up with that title? Because it's kind of weird, but...
So Shelby and I both didn't want to pigeonhole the name under a specific topic like mental health, because that's not all we're going to talk about. But we didn't want to do something generic and just name it after our names either, because anybody can do that, and that's just not what we were about. And she said it'd be funny if we did something along the lines of, like, calling it This Podcast, like, and I said, oh, so kind of like a Who's On First kind of thing. And she said, yeah. And if you don't know what I'm talking about, that's like an old skit from back in the day, where it's like they're like playing baseball, and their names are like who, what, when, where, and they're like, who's on first? And they're like, this person's on first, and they're like, no, who's on first? So basically, that's what we wanted it to be. We wanted to say this podcast, and people would be like, what's the name of it?
And it kind of rolls off the tongue.
This podcast.
Yeah.
Exactly. And then I thought, okay, well, we could make it an acronym if we wanted to make it maybe easier to find and look up for people. Because if you just type this podcast, I feel like anything could pop up on Google.
Yeah.
And so then that's how we started looking up, like, words for each individual letter of this.
Yeah. We knew the S was going to stand for show. It made sense. It's simple.
And T be the, because how else?
Yeah.
But then the H and the I is what stumped us. We wanted to initially start with honest for the letter H, but we didn't do that. We changed it because we found a word for I we liked so much. We needed to find something to, roll with it. Mm-hmm. And idealistic, so for some of you who are listening, if you don't know what idealistic means, it's basically just wanting to obtain perfection, the unrealistic expectation of obtaining perfection.
So, like, we do that on ourselves, and that's something we'll be talking about in later podcasts.
That's, like, a big part of, like, who we are and why we are the way we are and why we get along. Mm-hmm. And so that's one of the reasons why we incorporated that in there. Mm-hmm. And then healing, just because this is going to be healing for us, and then we're hoping in the process also be healing for others.
Mm-hmm. But yeah, that's what that stands for, so that it makes sense for you all. But we also have some ideas later. I have this book that I read for school, actually, and I actually ended up loving it. Absolutely hilarious. We are thinking maybe to use it in later podcasts. We probably need to get permission and stuff first, but I'm pretty sure it'll be okay because it's very educational. It's very funny. But yeah, and then I have some interviews I've been thinking about because I know some people who are really big mental health advocates, and they would probably be willing to, give up some of their thoughts to you guys as well as us because we need it for sure.
Mm-hmm. Give me guidance.
Yeah. But yeah, we already have about 4 or 5 different podcasts planned. Mm-hmm. But again, if this book idea comes to life, then like every other podcast is already planned.
Yeah.
This probably part won't go in, but I was thinking the book itself is only like $8. Mm-hmm. So you could probably get the book, and then like we can each go through and highlight like what we want to say for each lesson.
That would work.
Yeah. So.
Can you buy it at Books A Million? You think?
That or Amazon.
Okay. Because
it was only like $8 at MSSU, so I'm guessing in like an actual store it's probably like 10.
Yeah. But
you can probably find it for 8. Honestly, if you go on eBay, you can find it for cheap. That's true. Mm-hmm. But
it's about, do you trust it?
True. Yeah. I just bought a school book from there, and I'm waiting for it to come in. So for our first actual podcast, there you go. We are going to cover the broad term of happiness. Mm-hmm. Which includes things like secondhand self, and finding out who you are, and what it actually means to be happy, mm-hmm. and how it actually changes from person to person.
Yep. Happiness is something that I would say is fluid. I think most things in life are fluid. It just depends on the person, the circumstance, their past, the mm-hmm. person that they're connecting with, and, if it's with a friend or a family or a relationship or whatever it may be, all those things connect, and it's all down to, like, your own personal happiness. Mm-hmm. And that's something that we've been just reflecting on so much. I think almost entirely too much at this point. Yeah. But
especially now that, we've been in this quarantine, so we have way too much to think about.
I mean, what else are you gonna do? Nothing's open, and you're confined to your house. You stare at the wall and think about crap all day.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah. And, like, there's always this, like, thought of, what do I need to do to be happy? Mm-hmm. And it's really hard. It's a question that's so hard to answer. It's hard to find that answer sometimes. And, like, for me, it's really hard to find that answer. I mean, I know of certain things mm-hmm. that, that do make me happy, but I don't know if I can continue using those.
I think happiness is a mindset you create for yourself. It's mm-hmm. something that you have, it's really a process that you really have to work on. It's about thinking about why you're unhappy, what you can do to change, to make yourself happy, because it's all based on, like, what's going on inside of you, like, and what I started doing is I journal now, sometimes, not every day, but just when I'm feeling super compelled to, because I don't always have something to journal, mm-hmm. And then that way I'm able to look back and reflect on my thoughts and kind of track them in a way. But I've also started writing personal affirmations with each journal I do. So that way each time I'm like, I may feel this way and I may be going through this, but XYZ, I am more worthy than I tell myself every day. It's really just about kind of like how a relationship with somebody else is. How you always have to nurture that relationship. You always have to think about how they're feeling and how to approach things. You have to do that with yourself, and I think that sometimes people don't realize
And
that.
that's what I'm teaching the kids I work with. Is like we have these things called Tom's Talks, and basically, it's just the kids talking to us, the staff, about how, their day went, the emotions they're having, and then a lot of times we'll have them say 2 affirmations about themselves, especially when they're having a down day, and they have like a very negative mindset at the time, and it seems to help. They kind of roll their eyes and be sarcastic, like, this again? But it's like, yeah, this again, because...
But that helps, though, because it's the same reason why we get into the negative mindset in the first place. It's that it's been ingrained in us. Either outside forces are telling us it, or we're telling ourselves it, or both. And then it's just something that you've made yourself believe over time by hearing it again and again from whomever. And if you do that in a positive way, then positivity starts to come in. It's all about the mindset. And it doesn't mean that you won't have mental health and you're not going to have setbacks, and there's not going to be one day where you feel on top of the world and then the next day you may not, because it's not something where you reach a point and you plateau and then you're just happy forever. Then it's something that you have to continue to work on, basically. So and I think people try too hard, myself included, to reach that finish line, to reach the point where they're happy, when you need to learn how to be happy on the journey.
Right. There's like a few books that I know of and a few psychologists that I will be referencing to probably at our next podcast, because there's some good pointers and some good helpful tips of how to start your journey. And it's important to learn where to start, because that's the beginning of it all. And it takes a lot of discipline to continue it, because there's going to be things in life that are going to set you back. But like I tell the people I work with, there are mountains on every road, and you have to learn to get over it, because you can't just push through it.
Nope. You can't, and you can't run away from it either, because it'll come back to bite you in the ass. Just to point blank, really. There's no other way to say it. I mean, if you don't face it the first time, it comes back tenfold any time after that. And then it just keeps multiplying and multiplying. It's like holding in your emotions.
Yeah.
I mean, you can't.
And
you
I'm
have
really
to face
bad about
stuff.
that.
I mean, I can be too. When how I'm feeling involves other people, yes. If it's just myself, maybe not.
Yeah.
But if it involves other people, then yeah, I have a hard time with that, because I don't want to upset other people so badly that I will purposefully do whatever I can to make them happy at the expense of myself.
Right.
And again, finding personal happiness, you can't do that. You have to learn how to prioritize yourself in more situations than you prioritize other people. But that's hard, especially when you're somebody who's been hurt by other people prioritizing themselves. So then it's like, it's all a balance. It's all a balancing act, and where one part of your life is thriving, another part is going to not be, because you only have so much energy to give and distribute between so many things. And no matter what, there's going to be an aspect in your life that's going to be lacking at any given point. And that's hard to swallow.
It is.
Because we want to feel like we need to be happy and perfect and excel at everything 24/7. But as a human being, you just can't. You can't.
Yeah.
And that's a big part of happiness, too, is accepting that. What?
It is. It's just crazy to think, because, you're kind of putting yourself in, an awakening when you think about it. Because, you're constantly struggling with these ideas, and, why is this way? When the reality is, it's not going to stop. And that's the struggle I think everyone has a problem with.
Changing your perspective.
Yeah, because you have to be able to be, sit down and tell yourself, okay, this is what's wrong, this is what's bad, but...
XYZ.
Yeah, XYZ. These things are happening, and I need to focus more on these. The other things can be put on the back burner, and they will eventually level out.
Mm-hmm.
But there's always going to be something that's not working.
Mm-hmm. Always. Because, say you have enough energy to give to 10 things, but there's 12 things that people need to do at all times.
Mm-hmm.
Those other 2 things, they're going to lack. One lack more than the other. And that's going to be what you focus on at that time, and that's what you think that you're failing at, and that's what you use to tear yourself down. But you have to remember, everybody is struggling with something all the time.
Mm-hmm.
And it's about learning to cope with that and not let that make you unhappy. Because that's something I'm bad about. When I get upset about one thing, my whole day is ruined, and I'm upset about everything after that.
Right.
And I just go on a downward spiral. You have to be able to pick yourself back up after every little incident that happens, because then you just keep letting things get to you, and get to you, and get to you, and get to you, and get to you.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and then you find yourself so far under, you dug yourself a hole so far down that you're like, 10 ladders wouldn't even get me crawled out of here.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah. It's a whole spiral. That's
it is.
For sure.
It really is. And that's what mental health is.
Mm-hmm. It is.
It's just not being stable, essentially.
Mm-hmm.
And that's, I think, something that people that don't have mental health don't understand.
Mm-hmm.
Because for them, it is stable. It is the same day to day, unless something traumatic has happened.
Mm-hmm.
But a lot of people who have mental health did go through traumatic things at such a young age,
Mm-hmm.
and they didn't learn how to deal with it well, that it then develops into
Yeah.
emotional and mental issues,
Mm-hmm.
which I would say is my problem. Specifically mine.
Yeah, I really, honestly, when I think about it, I really don't know where mine comes about. I think a lot of it could be the fact of how I was raised by my parents, how conservative they are. And, like, I'm not bashing them for it at all, but it's because they've kind of sheltered me in a way, and I haven't had experiences to where I can go out and be okay with certain things.
You live your life in fear because of it.
Yes.
Because you're overprotected. Me too.
Yes.
Me too.
Yeah.
Me too.
I was, like, overly protected, and, like, I'm appreciative of that because I was lucky enough not to have, like, really severe things happen to me.
Mm-hmm.
But I still struggle with, like, I have really bad social anxiety
Mm-hmm.
because I'm an only child. The biggest events I've ever been to are my family of 9
Yeah.
events. Like, it's
Yeah.
not big at all. And so a lot of it stems from that. And again, that's nothing on the parents. They have no control over that.
That's true.
But
And that's, I don't know, like, that's the thing that's hard, is, like, when you grow up and you realize the certain things in your childhood that affected you and how they affected you, and then you're like, I kind of want to have that conversation,
Mhm.
but then you're like, how do you? And I know how it is, like, if I was a parent and my kid came to me and was like, XYZ upset me growing up, and now I feel this way because of it, I would be destroyed.
Mhm.
So then it's like, can you bring yourself to have that conversation for that healing? Because that's something that both parties probably need.
yeah. I think a lot of it, though, is you have to remember that when you confront them about this kind of thing, there is going to be some hurt in there. Like, there's no way you can go out without having, like, not gonna say a broken relationship, but it's gonna be skewed.
Mm-hmm.
Because when you confront someone, it's, even if you tell them repeatedly, it's not because of this, you are fine, I don't 100% blame you,
They take it that way
they're
anyway.
gonna feel that way.
Mm-hmm.
Which is understandable, because if you put yourself in their shoes, you're gonna feel that way.
Mm-hmm.
But it's all, I think a lot of it is about communication. Even though it starts out rough, over time, if you communicate more and more, the more you understand, and the more it'll get better.
Mm-hmm.
But the thing is, it has to be on both sides.
That's true. Like I was saying to you earlier with the communication thing, like, if they're not willing to actually hear you when
Mhm.
you're expressing yourself to them, then the conversation's a dead end.
Right.
So, and if they're not willing to communicate back, again, dead end.
Right.
So, yeah, that makes sense. It's just, you know, that's another thing, healing relationships with people. That
That's
might
another.
help with your happiness.
Yes.
And that's hard. That's the hardest thing to do, is to hurt people that you care about in order to get to the sunshine, you know,
Mhm.
the rainbow at the end of the storm. Like, I don't know what analogy I'm trying to use here, but
Yeah.
all right.
I mean,
Well, that is kind of a little snippet of the broad term of happiness and kind of something we want to elaborate more on in the next few podcasts.
And they'll be more laid out better.
Oh,
Ours
yeah.
is kind of like a ramble now, but...
We're kind of just testing the waters with this podcast thing, seeing how it goes, but I feel like we naturally have a conversation that flows well, so if we have, like, I mean, we don't need to make a script word for word, but if we kind of have something kind of laid out more than we did this time, like...
it'll help a lot.
Yeah, because I tend to go off on, like...
Tangents.
Yes.
Yeah, I do that too.
Yeah.
But...
Alright,
I mean, if you guys have any questions, or if there's, like, certain topics that are like, oh, I think it'd be interesting to talk about this in more detail, that's the point of our podcast. We feel like a lot of podcasts that we personally listen to don't go into necessarily the biggest detail and experiences as we want to, and we do when we're just talking in our houses.
Yeah, just to each other.
Yeah, just to each other. So our goal is to be more detail-oriented and also give you guys some, like, help and be like, look, this is some things you can do, these are some things we've learned that help with these kind of things, and hopefully as we grow and better ourselves, you're growing and bettering yourself while listening and taking some of the things we have to say. And
I will say, we both have researched a lot into psychology. You know more than me because you're actually about to graduate with your degree, so you've, taken some more advanced classes. But, don't take everything we say like we're medical professionals.
Yeah, no. Yeah, just don't.
I just want to clarify that before people are like, who do these people think they are giving us, like, medical professional advice? We're not licensed therapists, okay? No. We're into psychology, but this is more just us picking our own brains and seeing if that helps you guys. So. Yeah.
And a lot of our ideas will be coming from, and we'll reference whoever our ideas came from. Because a lot of them, like, I've learned a lot in school, and there's professors out there that have given me these ideas, and I've used them and they help, so I want to tell you guys.
I've learned a lot on YouTube, if I'm really being honest. I watched Katie Morin, I think. She was the therapist that Shane Dawson used in his documentary with Jake Paul. I watch her channel, and then I watch Anna Campbell, and she used to work in a psych ward in Massachusetts, like the one of the best mental health hospitals in the United States. I think it was like in the top 3 or something. And anyway, she doesn't do that now because she's a YouTuber, but that's where I learned a lot of my psychology information was from her.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah.
But anyways, if you guys have anything you want to see, comment. If you like what we talked about, comment. If there's any kind of constructive criticism, don't be an asshole or I'm not going to listen to you.
Yeah. No.
But if you have some mature constructive criticism for, like, as far as our sound and ways, like, we might be able to improve, keep in mind we are young and early 20 college student type of people, so we're not rich. So if you have a suggestion, make sure it's obtainable at least, please. But I think that's it for this one.
It is.
Alright. Well, come back next week for more deep talks into happiness specifically.
Yep.